Have you ever been around somebody who overstates reality? Like, they always want to paint this picture that what they're doing or who they are or who they're connected with is more amazing and famous than it really is. It could look kind of like this house I'm in, right? I'm in this house, and as you can see, the railing here is doesn't actually, like, it's broken. Like, this is fake. This is a prop. In fact, this whole thing is fake. I'm not in a house. I'm in a giant video studio with lights and fake props and fake walls. And as you come out here, you go, oh, gee, he's not in a really nice house. He's in a thing that's built up with 2x4s. So I have a friend who one time was telling me about this partnership that he had struck up with a really famous person. And he said, yeah, I'm partnering with, and he said a name, and if I said that name, you'd instantly recognize this person. They are uber famous. And I thought, wow, that's fascinating. What a cool job. I mean, like, he did a good job of building a partnership with this really famous person. And so I probed a little bit, and I said, hey, so what are you guys doing? What's your partnership like? As we figured it out, here's what he was doing. That famous person produces certain resources. He was buying that person's resources from Amazon and using them. And so I scratched my head a little bit, and I was like, wait a minute. So your partnership with this famous person is you buy their stuff? Well, I mean, yeah. And so I just thought, oh my word. So this guy, and it's classic, right? I mean, I can tell you 10 times, same guy will tell you, yeah, I'm partnering with, I'm working with. And so here's what I'm gonna start doing. What I'm gonna start doing is I'm gonna start watching like Steph Curry videos on how to shoot 3-pointers. And then I'm just gonna go tell everybody, yeah, I'm partnering with Steph Curry on my shooting. Yeah, he and I are working together because I watch his YouTube videos. I mean, come on. What is it that drives us to want to do that? To make the fake look real and to make our position look bigger than it is. You know, Corey, could you shoot this really low so I look super tall all of a sudden? You know, no, not that. Now I look shorter. No, knock it off. So, like, what is it, though, that drives us to want to say, like, a little bit more? You know, how much money do you make? Well, you make $52,000 a year, so you say about 60. You know, or what's your title? You say, well, I'm an executive. Well, you're a manager. Okay, so, like, what is it about that? I've done that. I've done it. What is it that drives us? It's pride, it's ego. But here's the key thing that I think it is. It's insecurity. It's insecurity. Proverbs 12, we're walking through this series in Proverbs 12. And here's what verse 9 says. Verse 9 says, better to be lowly and have a servant than to play the great man and lack bread. Let me run it back. Better to be lowly and have a servant than to play the great man and lack bread. So the first guy is lowly. He is lowly, but he has a servant. He has some wealth. He actually has resources, a servant. Where the second guy is playing the great man, but he can't even eat. And so you see this contrast of the lowly who has a servant and the great man who and maybe we're just watching too many inspirational videos, right? We're going to fake it till we make it. We're going to name it and claim it. And we're going to say what we believe in the future as if it's current. I understand. I've read all those same books. I get it, the temptation. But how does this square with what Scripture would tell us? And how does this square with, say, how Jesus walked on earth, right? Here is the author of creation. All things were made through him. That's Jesus. And on the earth, he'd walk around and listen to us talk about politics and the Romans and the Gentiles and that woman and this guy. And at any moment, he could have pulled the biggest trump card ever, right? So you guys are working on, like, you know, how to get to the next town or whether we're going to have enough food to eat. That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. I remember back when I was making the Rocky Mountains, there was this thing like where we did the ravine and it was awesome. At any moment, he could have just like squashed us with how big of what he is doing is compared to how small of what we are doing. And so, Dad, here's the question. In your family, in your home, which guy are you? Are you the guy who is humble but has resources? Or are you the guy who plays the great man but lacks bread? And I think there's both a spiritual component to this we should weigh. There's also a physical component to this. Are you living beyond your means economically? So as an example, if you go back to the Dave Ramsey principles of debt management and the baby steps and all that, are you living at a level where you're trying to have people believe a certain thing about you? The cars you buy, the clothes you buy, the house you live in, it's all stretched to the max. You're mortgaged to the hilt. You're in a big wash of debt, and it's because you're trying to keep up an external image. You are the second guy. Or are you living below your means economically that gives you margin, that gives you resources? I know guys who have lived in the same house for 20 or 30 years and they could have moved a couple times. But man, these guys have a lot of extra cash flow because they've managed their expenses and they're using that cash flow for missions. They're using that cash flow. Some of them give to our ministry. So some of these guys are intentionally living below their means so they have the capacity to bless other people. Dad, which guy are you? And that leads me right to this week's mission. One time I was asked to speak at a Bible study, and there's a couple hundred guys there, and I just sat down in a row. I was a guest speaker, and so I sat down in a row and waited for them to introduce me. Well, while we were sitting and waiting, the two guys in front of me start talking about today's guest speaker. It was hilarious. So one guy goes, hey, I think we got a guest speaker today. And the other guy goes, yeah, I wonder if he's any good. The other guy goes, yeah, I sure hope so. So they're having this conversation about me, but they don't know it's me. And so I leaned up and I just said to the guys, I said, hey, I heard this week's guest speaker is awesome. And they go, oh, really? Okay, great, thanks. And so then a couple minutes later, they do the introductions, and then they go, and our guest speaker, Ken Evans. And so I get up and walk up, and they start dying laughing. I start dying laughing. I thought it was a great gag. And so afterward, we had a great laugh about it. And but my point is this. When they were talking about who the guest speaker was, I had a choice to make, right? Say nothing. Just let it ride. Say, oh, hey, guys, it's me. By the way, I'm the guest speaker, in case you want to know. Or have a little fun with them. I chose the third door, which is the door I'd normally pick. My point is this. In that moment, I didn't really need their approval. I didn't need to be recognized. I was going to be brought up later anyway. So I'll get my recognition later when I get brought up. And the proof will be in the pudding, right? Why go and promote myself if I am horrible? Just let them figure that out on their own. And so, Dad, the reason I tell that story is because what I want you to try to do this week is in some moment in your life, I want you to intentionally downplay your role. So you might be the president. You might be the owner. You might be the big man. You may be the pastor. You may be in charge. You may be the guy calling all the shots. But you're going to be in a situation later where you're going to need to lower yourself mentally and Dad, when you do this, guess what? You look just like Jesus. You look just like Jesus. For a while, he was made lower. He came down for a while in order to serve us. So Dad, do that this week. Find an opportunity to not talk about your credentials, to not talk about your power and influence and your control and your role and your title, but instead just let humility guide you this week, 1 or 2 times. It's freeing, it's awesome. And then later, if they find out you're in charge, all the better, right? Works out to your advantage anyhow. Don't be the mouth that praises yourself. Not this week. Maybe next week you can do that again. No, but not this week. Don't be the mouth that praises yourself. Do that, Dad. Do that, Dad. Because it'll teach your kids about humility, and it'll teach your kids a great life lesson about how Jesus operated. Do this because you are not a father on accident. So go be a father on purpose.